Oh man, I am so excited to talk to Mike Richman. He is host of the Locked On Blazers podcast. He is your past first point guard, and we got him here on the show. Mike, thank you so much for rocking with us. Let's get right down to business, man. Just your thoughts on the state of the Portland Trail Blazers right now. Make sense of this run that they are on right now.
Well, that's an impossible task. It makes no sense, Orlando. They just keep winning. Like they were a bad basketball team 3 weeks ago, and now they've won 9 of 10, and they just look really good. The defense is really good. The offense is starting to come around. They're winning games not just because one dude goes off every night, but because they have balance. They can score in a bunch of different ways, and they're locking up good teams. And some of this is a soft schedule, but they've also just blown teams out. And when you beat bad teams pretty handily, it's hard to say, you know, it's a fluke. It feels, I don't know if this feels real forever. They're probably not going to win 90% of their games for the remainder of the season, but they're a better team than they have been in quite some time.
Mike, you touched on it a little bit there, but what changed? We got to like the middle of January and they flipped the switch.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest change over the last 10 games is that they are an elite defensive team. They added enough parts and had, and the growth of Toumani Camara that they were, I thought they would be better on defense this year. But for the most part, over the first 35 games of the season, they were one of the 10 worst defenses in the NBA. They were bad on that end. That's just what they were. Over the last 10 games, they've been the best defensive team in the league, and they've been the best defensive team in the league by a lot. Some of that is they're just playing a little bit bigger, but I think some of that is just understanding each other. The communication is better. They're able to execute kind of what they want to do, which is change schemes and play a bunch of different styles of defense, and they've been able to do that. And because the defense has been so good, it gives you a chance to win games, and they've taken advantage of it.
Mike, what have you thought of the coaching job that Chauncey Billups has done, particularly over this run?
It's hard not to give him credit, right? I think Billups has been a scapegoat for much of Rip City during his 3.5 years in Portland, and then he rips off this run, and it's like, well, maybe this guy it's working for him. When a team plays this well and they kind of execute at least the spoken preferred style of the coach, he deserves credit. Now he's leaning into the group. They're playing 8 guys. He is playing the guys he trusts. They are playing to win the game every night, but also they're winning the games every night. So it's hard to be too critical.
I got to know, Mike, I know we're in, just past the midway point or so, but who's been your MVP of this team?
I think it's Denny Avdia, all told, because I think I don't think he's the Blazers' best defender. I don't think he's the Blazers' best offensive player, but he's near the top and on both sides of the ball, and his versatility on both ends has really unlocked them. And even if you just look at this recent stretch, he missed 3 games with an ankle injury, and they got walloped in those 3 games. And then he came back into the lineup, and they ripped off this 9 of 10 stretch. Now, it's not that Denny is great every night. In fact, he's had some quieter nights as of late, and it speaks to sort of the versatility on this team. But I think Denny has been the sort of piece that allows them to do all the things they want to do on both sides of the ball.
One of the things I love about your pod and when you're on is that you say to hold on to your joy. I think a lot of Trailblazers are kind of marinating in this and just enjoying the ride that they're on right now. But I got to know, does this change your outlook on this team and how we should look at them going forward?
In the big picture, I don't think it changes my personal outlook, because I think to get to the high levels of competing in a very challenging Western Conference, you probably need a perennial all-star type player on the team, or at least close to it. And I don't think they have that. But they're certainly closer than they seemed, and I think that's what changes. It's like before they seemed far away in several steps, and now maybe now it seems like they have cut out some of those steps just because of the role player types that they have on the team seem to be raising the floor a great deal.
Now, looking ahead, you mentioned, all-star type player, just somebody that's going to get them over the hump. But the trade deadline is right around the corner. We're recording this with about 24 hours to go until the trade deadline. What do you think the Trailblazers do at this point, and does their recent success play into any of this?
I think the sort of rational brain part of me says, like, no, obviously 10 games should not play into your decision, right? Because the whole breadth of last season and what happened in the first 35 games of the year, like that, all of that matters, right? You have to take it all into the consideration. But I think if maybe in December and early January, we thought this team should sell off veterans, they should try to get worse because they should chase ping pong balls, I think that might be out the window to some extent. I think they were always unlikely to make major moves, but even if they were to make minor moves to get a little bit worse, I think those are unlikely. I think there is a world in which the Blazers buck all of the sort of common sense and try to get a little bit better at the trade deadline. Now, would I do that? No, but I'm not in charge. I am simply a man with a microphone and access to the internet. I don't think, if you were hoping that this was the tear it down, get rid of the vets trade deadline, I don't think it will be, because I think they're looking at a team that they like where they are right now.
What if they do nothing? Have you gotten to that point? Is that where you think this is headed?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to do nothing when they were bad. So I think now that they're good, they might also do nothing. I think inaction is frustrating regardless. If you're good, inaction is frustrating at the trade deadline. If you're bad, inaction is frustrating at the deadline. If you're the Blazers and you're in this weird space where it's not clear whether you're a good team or a bad team, but you are like a basketball team that is playing a lot better recently, inaction will be frustrating. But this front office has shown either a stubbornness to make moves or a willingness to be patient, however you would like to frame it. And I would assume that they will continue to approach it that way because they want to get they feel that they can be patient and get the best for the best trade return for their players, and to some extent that has played out.
Mike, what do you think their biggest need is at this point?
They probably just need a little more shooting. They're a little full at every spot, right? They have some older vets in front of some younger players. They have a lot of center depth. They have, some forwards that some young veteran forwards in Kamara and Denny Abdia that need to play a bunch. It might not be a specific skill set or a specific need. I think one thing that they needed heading into this stretch before they won some games was clarity, and maybe making some trades could offer that clarity. And I still think that it's just, at what level are you clarifying? How good is this team versus before it was like, how bad can they be? How many ping pong balls can they land in April or whenever they do the draft lottery, May, I guess. But now the clarity is like, how good can you be, and at what level do you want to be competitive in the immediate term?
Are you starting to look at the standings, Mike? I got to know. Are you starting to look up?
I did, yes. I did yesterday. I very much poo-pooed it. As much as I'm a hold on to your joy person, I also try to be as honest about sort of my rational feelings. My rational feelings is when they had won, 6 of 7. It's like, look, they're 6.5 games out of the play-in, out of 10th, with 3 teams in the way, and then they keep winning. They've won 3 in a row since I kind of floated that out there, and now it's like, yeah, as we wake up this morning, they're 4 games out of 8th. I know that. They know that, and that feels very different. Whether that feels good, bad, or whatever, that feels very different. That feels, with 31 games remaining in the schedule, 4 games out of 8th feels like a thing that is like on the table in a way that, shoot, it's early February. You would ask me in late January, like literally a week ago, I would be like, no, stop. And now I'm like, okay, that's fine. You can look up in the standings, and I'm okay with it.
Mike, you've been covering the Blazers for a long time. You've seen the highs and lows. Where does this one stack up for you? Like, how do you compare it to a feeling of, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Like, can you just help me to just describe the last time you felt like this and the last time the Trailblazers fans have been excited like this?
Well, 2019 was pretty fun. They made the Western Conference Finals. But I think the most comparable stretch to this is the 2015-16 season. That was the year post LaMarcus Aldridge when he went to San Antonio, and the team was supposed to be bad. They were supposed to be bad. They wanted to be bad. The plan from the front office was to be bad. and they won 44 games. And it kind of informed the following era of Blazers basketball because they were ahead of schedule. And I remember at the time asking some players on the team, specifically Davis, and said, "Did you expect to be here?" And he said, "No, I expected to be on vacation." And I don't think you'll get the same type of candor from this particular team because there's nobody quite like Ed Davis. But that season, when it was like they were supposed to be bad and they started a little bit slow and then they just got hot and got going, that reminds me of that stretch, that 2015-16 season when in January and February they just started rolling and ended up making the playoffs and winning a playoff series. And I'm not going that far with this team, but the vibe feels similar.
Okay, last question for you, Mike, and I'll let you go on this one. But a lot of Trailblazers fans, and I mean even the organization as a whole, watching the development of Scoot Henderson closely. What have you thought of what he's done during this stretch? Do you feel like he's kind of turned a corner?
Yeah, I mean it's the Scootissance, to steal a phrase from friend of the program. He was so rough his rookie season that I think there was some panic around Rip City about what he could be. And he's had some bumpy times to begin this season as well. But over this last stretch, probably over the last 6 weeks of Scoot, he is so clearly better at the things you want him to be at. He's the things you want him to be better at. He's shooting better. His floor game and decision making is better. His ability to get to the rim and when he gets there, actually finish is better. He's in some ways kind of like a good measuring stick for where they want to be. And as Scoot continues to rise, it allows you to feel comfortable about the team's rise as a whole.
Mike, I appreciate you dropping knowledge here today. Thanks for joining me. He is Mike Richman, host of the Locked On Blazers podcast. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me, Orlando.